Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We got a lot to get into today. We're going to talk about some bowl projections. Yes, bowl projections are already out. I love these things because, once again, I like keeping these until the end of the season, and we can see how accurate some of these bowl projections are. Really, funny stuff towards the end of the season. Last season, teams were predicting. I think the big one was Penn State that finished 3-8, something like that. They're going to a big bowl game. And then, not so much. We'll also have a look at the Georgia Spring Game. We'll look at Georgia Spring Game, and I've got some stuff on Alabama's Spring Game and LSU Spring Game. So 3 SEC Spring Games that I did. Sports Radio 1400, of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. We appreciate you joining us today as we get set up for the week. By the way, don't forget, he'll be here Thursday and Friday as South Carolina takes on the number 1 team in the country. This is a Gamecock team that has won their last 4 SEC series, something like that. Playing some, I guess it's gutsy baseball. Dropping the first game of the series, coming back and winning those series, especially going on the road and winning at LSU. So, yeah, there's that. All right, so don't forget, plenty of baseball talk coming up this week. And we're going to have football talk, too, because the spring game, of course, for South Carolina is on, Saturday. The Garnet and Black game down at Williams-Brice. 15,000 fans will be able to attend the game. The first one under new coach Shane Beamer. All right, so let's get into it today. Let's start. What do we want to go with first here? Oh, we have to talk about Deshaun Watson for a moment. It's interesting that today his attorney Rusty Hardin released a statement basically throwing, I don't want to use the term shade, but basically saying, hey, the majority of these women did this or that. And what I mean by that is that in the statement, he said, we have proof that some of them wanted to, quote, get money out of Watson. Some of them, after having massages by or giving massages to Watson, went back and went back to Deshaun Watson and wanted to do more massages for Deshaun Watson. Comes back down to, man, it's a mess. But you know what? Here's the thing. This is the first true statement the first statement we've had out of Watson or Watson's attorneys with some detailed information about it. And, before we had the allegations from the women, and now we have this from Watson. So it comes back down to, who do you believe? Now, remember, we're 22 cases. Now it's down to 21? The 21, one person actually dropped out of the lawsuits. So now it's down to 21. And it comes back to the same thing that we knew before. When you look at what was said, that's interesting as well because of the different things that Rusty Hardin said. 803-978-1832. Out to the phones we go. And good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Oh, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, man?
Not much. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
About?
I was actually talking about the stuff with Deshaun Watson. Appreciate you calling this program, man. Sorry, it looks like your phone dropped out on us there. 803-978 1-832-803-978. 1-832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon. But the stuff with Deshaun Watson, now it comes back to, all right, what do you believe? And, this coming out a couple of hours ago, here are some of the things according to Harden. It said 8 plaintiffs bragged about, praised, and were excited about massaging Watson. 7 plaintiffs willingly worked or offered to work with Watson. 3 plaintiffs lied about the number of sessions. 3 plaintiffs lied about their alleged trauma and resulting harm. 5 plaintiffs told others they wanted to get money out of Watson. And 5 plaintiffs have scrubbed or entirely deleted their social media accounts. So there. Interesting stuff. That's all coming from the stuff there with Deshaun Watson. The response from his attorney. So if you want to talk about that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. We're going to look at some of the spring games. We'll start with Alabama. Here's some of the things we learned from they call it the A-Day game, which is interesting. Let's head out to the phones. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? What can I do for you?
I just wanted to ask a question about the Deshaun Watson situation.
Sure. What do you got?
So I did remember reading that one of the lawsuits actually ended up being dropped.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Do you believe
the one lawsuit that was dropped, they didn't want to reveal who they were. So that's why it was dropped. And they actually said I think I read it somewhere that they didn't want to deal with the emotional harm that would come out if people knew who they were. So that's why they dropped it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. All right. We'll take more calls on Deshaun Watson, 803-978-1832. All right. Some thoughts on the Alabama spring game really quick here. Bryce Young ended up being the MVP. Nick Saban was loving him some Bryce Young afterwards, it seemed like. And he's basically the man right now for that Alabama team. And, is getting turned over the keys to a Corvette. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like Alabama found what they wanted in quarterback with Bryce Young, which, to be honest, lots of people thought that it was a setup where he should have been the quarterback last year. I mean, several folks that we had on the show last year previewing Alabama said they thought that he was going to beat out Mac Jones, and Mac Jones said, nah, don't want to hear that. So here's some of the other things that I gathered from some of the different stuff there that I found through different folks. The big question for Alabama is going to be at wide receiver. John Mechie missed the spring, but you could say the Alabama group is inexperienced, but you're saying that because of who they lost. I mean, you lose the Heisman Trophy winner, you lose Jalen Waddle. Interesting stuff there. So it was interesting, too, to see some of the other guys that were out there. Slade Bolden saw first-team snaps, according to what I'm reading here. But you're going to have to figure out some stuff there at wide receiver for Alabama. The strength of Alabama could be with the running backs and the tight ends. Roydell Williams and Jace McClellan topped 100 all-purpose yards in the spring game. Killian Robinson, he may be a guy that can get some snaps. So that's going to be some of the spots there that are pretty good. The Alabama defense looked pretty good throughout, by the way, the first-team defense anyway. I also thought that they did a good job of rotating with different you got to see a lot of linebackers and cornerbacks, et cetera, for Alabama. So when you're watching this game, it's like watching with as many great players as they've got, it's like watching one of the high school All-American games, like in basketball, one of the McDonald's things. You know what I'm saying? We see some of those guys out there. It's kind of the vibe that I get. from watching the Alabama game. But that was a couple of things that I took away from it. I think that wide receiver is going to be an area where they're going to figure some things out. John Mechie not playing, maybe that's, he's going to be the guy, but if you're not there, we don't really know. Brandon wants to know who will be Alabama's number one receiver this year. It's going to be, I would think it would be Mechie. That would be my opinion. But then again, you never know. Folks were talking more about Waddle last season, and Waddle, of course, got hurt. You can make an argument that Waddle's injury helped pave the way for Devontae Smith to win the Heisman. And I'm not trying to be negative here, but I'm just saying Smith ended up with the opportunity to get more catches simply because Waddle wasn't there. So there's that. That's the stuff I've got on the Alabama game. Let's look at the Georgia game. This is from the A day, the G day. Just call it the damn spring game. What's wrong with you people? The G Day spring scrimmage. The red team defeated the black team by a score of 28-23. How long before we can't call them the red team and the black team, by the way? That's not politically correct. We don't want to offend red people or black people. That's what someone's going to come out and say here eventually. What a mess. Anyway, basically the first team offense was playing against the second team defense. The second team offense was playing against the first team defense. That's how Georgia pretty much put themselves into the mix for their spring game. JT Daniels looked really good. Threw for a ton of yards and a touchdown. He did have what was it? I'm trying to make sure I've got my right numbers here. It was a lot of yards. Stetson Bennett the fourth. Georgia fans don't want to hear much about him, but hey, if somebody gets injured, he did move the ball up and down the field a little bit and help the team to its first touchdown. He did have their only turnover on the day for the red team. But, I mean, I think it's cut and dry. It's JT Daniels and everybody else. Alan online says, I'm lying about UGA. Okay. JT Daniels sucks then. You said it, Alan. We're just going to agree with you, man. If I'm lying about UGA. At running back, Zamir White did a really good job. James Cook was also out there for the red team. They touched the ball combined 12 times for 111 yards in the passing game. And one of the notes I got, White did a nice job of making defenders miss and picking up extra yardage, while Cook did most of the damage by separating before the catch. So there you go with that. For the black team, Kendall Milton's 8-yard touchdown that opened the scoring was impressive, where he apparently made some moves there and did a nice job of catching the ball out of the backfield. So at running back, they looked pretty good. Let's see here. Receivers. The ball was thrown around a good bit. Freshman wideout Adonai Mitchell led the way for the red team. Caught 7 of 13 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. Darnell Washington, a big day for the black team, 4 catches for 84 yards and a score. When you look at Georgia, they lost their big wide receiver, and everybody was talking about, man, this is going to be something that may hinder them. Bulldogs looked pretty solid at wide receiver. From the game that I watched, I didn't see much of a drop-off, and I'm not knocking the young man that got injured. Please don't get me wrong on that. But they even had a walk-on, Steven Peterson, 4 targets for 60 yards. So he caught all 4 passes thrown to him for 60 yards. Now, a lot of that could have to do with the fact that he's got a good quarterback throwing him the ball. Imagine if Kirby Smart would have done that last year. Wonder what would have happened there. I guess we'll find out. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the offensive line. You could make an argument that they started off slow on both sides for the red and the black team, but they got better as the day went on. But we'll see. Now, here's the thing, though. The number 1 offensive line was playing against the number 2 Georgia defense. Now, I know the Georgia defense is pretty good, But in the end, you got to think of it from this manner. Your first string line was scrimmaging against the second stringers, and it seemed like they had some issues at some point. The defensive line for Georgia once again looked, I thought, really good. The red team had some batted passes by a couple of guys. Zion Logue had a sack and recovered a fumble. The group for the black team was probably the most dominant group on the field. Devontae Wyatt had a pair of sacks. Trayvon Walker had a sack. Jalen Carter made 4 stops. So the defensive line for Georgia on both teams, may be one of the deepest areas at Georgia, even though I really liked the wide receivers and their ability to do some stuff. Let's see here. A couple of other notes here on the Georgia program before we go to a break. Defensive backs. I thought it was an up and down kind of day for them, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that JT Daniels was so strong that I think that other than the Clemson game this year, that's going to be the best offense they'll face. I know that Georgia fans will get upset about me saying that, but other than the Clemson game, the best offense they'll face would probably be in the spring game. But Javon Bullard, he did have a chance at interception, but misplayed it. He did lead his red team in tackles, and he looked like he had some swagger to him. But, yeah, I thought the defensive backs, they were kind of lacking, but I think that had more to do with the Georgia offense than than just the defensive backs. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon. So we give you a quick look at the spring games for both Georgia and Alabama. I've got bowl projections too. We'll have those later on this afternoon. I've got LSU spring game and the recap there. And I tell you what, man, the LSU thing is like when you watch that, you're like, how did this team go 5-5 last year? How did that happen? Well, looking at some of the stuff that, and I watched a good piece of this game, and I was kind of stunned a little bit. The question for them is going to be who's going to take over at quarterback, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Of course, you're welcome to join us here on the rundown at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to check us out this afternoon right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Shout out to the folks watching on Facebook and YouTube over there. We appreciate them. Take a quick break. We'll have more for you in just a moment. This is the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I would value your opinion there, SEC Dog, if your team did something that was worth a crap, but not so much. Let's see here. Yeah, Zamir White is the only thing that Zamir White did that was bad in his life is go to Georgia. No, I'm picking. Zamir White he's a heck of a running back. I think anyway. Good player there. I'm watching my Dogecoin, guys. I bought a bunch of Dogecoin. And I've made like $400 on it. Justin says South Carolina will go 7-5 this year. You know, we did our projections last night, and I took the under. I think they win 5 games. I don't know where the 7 are, sir. Justin, tell me where you think 7 wins are. And don't give me Kentucky, because I don't know how Gamecock fans just think they're just going to roll Kentucky. You got a better chance of rolling Tennessee than Kentucky. But tell me where the 7 wins are. I'd love to hear that, sir. I've made like $400 on my Dogecoin in my $50 investment. I'm pretty happy about that. That's like free money. Clemson plays Georgia in baseball tomorrow night. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Georgia folks, now, if you don't beat them, you got issues. Clemson baseball team is not very good. Wow, they're terrible. Oof. Bad, bad, bad. They just get, it's like beer league softball with that pitching staff, man. They just get smoked. I completely agree with you. Oh. Allergies are killing me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope some of y'all are around. We're going to do a live stream on the day of the game. Jackpot's going to wear a Clemson shirt. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for following me on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast will be up for the show about 5 o'clock. Allen Online says Georgia's baseball team will beat Clemson tomorrow. Well, everybody else has been beating the Clemson baseball team. They're at 2 games under 500 right now after getting swept at Miami. Not very good baseball going on right now for Clemson. Now, South Carolina, on the other hand, they went out, dropped the first game to LSU, win the doubleheader on Saturday, and they win another SEC series. Very resilient South Carolina team this year. Mark Kingston's got them doing some good stuff down there. As the Gamecocks are 10-5 in conference play. We'll find out. I say we'll find out how good they are, but the number 1 team in the country, Arkansas, comes in this weekend to Founders Park. I'm sure that getting tickets for that will be tough. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. In addition to something that Tim Corbin said for Vanderbilt that kind of shocked the college baseball world just a little bit with what he said. So we'll get into that. But I want to do the LSU spring game first. Here's the big thing on that. The defense from last year for LSU was quite possibly the worst LSU defense that I've seen in since I've been working in sports talk radio. I mean, that LSU defense was terrible last year. Absolutely terrible. So with that, when I watched this game on Saturday, it seemed like the defensive backs were playing like, oh my goodness, we're actually LSU defensive backs. We're not a bunch of bums. We actually have a little bit of pride with the tiger paw, the tiger stripes that are on our jerseys here. We won a national championship a couple of years ago. No. I mean, they actually played like they had a little bit of pride. Durante Jones, the defensive coordinator, had them flying all over the field. And, they may have been, you can make an argument they might have been a little bit too aggressive. You can make that argument. But I tell you what, after last season, if you're an LSU fan, where it looked like you were out of position all of the time, you'll deal with an effort play where, a guy over pursues a little bit and he still is able to correct and make a play. You'll be able to fix all of that. But last year, they just looked like they were completely out of position all the time. And you can also talk about the defensive line push the offensive line around for much of the game. Now, with the spring game, you don't really know what you've got because you're scrimmaging against your own team. But I did see the defensive line pushing around the LSU offensive line. So there's that. Now, the quarterback situation was interesting. All the quarterbacks split reps evenly. Let's see here. Max Johnson and Miles Brennan had the best showings. Johnson was 11 of 17 passing, including a 7-for-7 run with the purple team, finished with a combined 180 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Brennan was 12 of 20 for 116 yards and a touchdown. TJ Finley finished 10 of 19 for 108 yards and a pair of interceptions, while early enrollee Garrett Nussmeyer's spring game saw him finish 15 of 25 for 133 yards, one touchdown pass, and 3 interceptions. Let's just cut the mustard here, okay? It's Max Johnson and Miles Brennan. One of those two guys is going to be the quarterback. TJ Finley is probably going to transfer. That's just the vibe that I'm getting. He did not go to LSU to sit on the bench. I don't think he said that yet, but TJ Finley will probably transfer. Gamecock fans remember him last year, played pretty well against South Carolina, and then kind of faltered later on. But here's the big thing with that. I think he's going to end up transferring. Of course, that was the big thing with the quarterbacks. Orgeron said that the race will remain open until fall camp. I think if I were going to go with someone, I would. It's tough because I like Miles Brennan, but Max Johnson, yeah, that's the young man that went into Florida and won. I don't know. And then Nussmeier, he threw too many interceptions, but he's a youngin'. He's going to make some mistakes. But look for Finley to transfer. That's my opinion. And I think that Orgeron's right about this. They're going to battle it out, and he may not tell us who the starting quarterback is until whoever it is lengthens themselves from it maybe an hour before the game starts. And by the way, I wouldn't tell anybody either. Why would you tell anybody? I'd make them both prepared like they were the number one, and then I would tell them an hour before the game started. Why not? That's exactly what I would do. I would go and I would, my depth chart would literally say 1A, 1B, or just 1A, and then have those two. And then I'd have Finley and Nussmeier as 1B. That's kind of the way that I would go with it. That way, I didn't name you the starting quarterback. I did not name you the starting quarterback. If you want to transfer, that's on you. I think in the transfer portal era, that's what you got to do right now. I got an interesting comment from Justin. He's talking about South Carolina will win 3 conference games, and the other 4 will be the non-conference games. The other 4 will be Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Auburn. He didn't put Kentucky in there, but he's got them beating Auburn. That's interesting, too. Auburn's a team that, would anybody be surprised if Auburn went 10-2 or if they went 7-5? I wouldn't. Either way, I don't know what we're going to have with the Mountain West coaching staff that took a bunch of, quote, SEC retreads as coordinators. I don't know how that's going to work. We shall see. Finishing up with the LSU stuff here. A couple of players who look good. John Trey Kirkland, played some special teams, played wide receiver and cornerback. Did pretty well, I thought, in that in the LSU spring game. Kaishan Boot, I hope that's how I pronounce his name, set the SEC record for most receiving yards in a single game and did so as a true freshman. Saturday, he had 11 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown. The second touchdown was called back on a block in the back. That's going to be your guy that is going to be the one that whoever's quarterback, that's going to be their target. All right, so there's my stuff, the info I found on LSU, Alabama, and the Georgia Bulldogs. Of the teams that I guess it's because I expect Alabama to be so good. It's just like, all right, Edwin corrected me online. It's Boutte. Thank you, sir. I just kind of, what we got with Alabama is what we got. I mean, it was Bryce Young. Okay, that's fine. We know he's the number one guy. From the LSU, the defense was the thing that stuck out the most for me. Absolutely, the defense. They looked like they cared. And then with Georgia, it was JT Daniels. JT Daniels doing his thing. But I tell you what, man, that matchup with Clemson, you're going to have 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country squaring off in week 1. And you know what? There's all this talk about, they can lose that game and it makes it a razor-thin thing for them to make it to the playoff. No, I don't think so. That is elimination game 1, in my opinion. Whoever loses that game is out. Congratulations, you're going to the Peach Bowl. Seriously. That's how big that game is for Clemson and Georgia. All right, we'll take your calls on that. I've also got bowl projections, which are kind of interesting. We'll talk about that and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, Brandon, I like Roderick, but I think Cam Smith's going to be a guy that I thought that he would have had an opportunity to play more last year. But obviously, the start of the season, he had to play behind J.C. Horn, etc. So if he can stay on the field, meaning injuries and not getting into trouble, then look for Cam Smith to be right there. Let's see here. You know what, SEC dog? I've come to the conclusion that you and I could be friends if, we supported the same team. We can have a beer together. Some of the stuff you say is right on point, and then other stuff, it's like I'm thinking you're drinking paint thinner. I really do. You could be like Edwin is with me. Edwin and I are friends. I mean, he's one of those Cajun fools that lives in South Carolina, or excuse me, not South Carolina, it's Southern California. I messed that up. What's up, G Bama boy? I know you're happy about your spring game out there with Young getting the job done. Interesting stuff there. Ooh, I've got this coaches stuff too. I forgot to get into. You guys want to do coaches or bowl projections? Coaches that'll do best in their most successful first-year coaches this season. Which way do you guys want to go? You want to do coaches, or do you want to do bowl projections? The bowl projections are actually kind of interesting. I do that first. You're sniffing glue. You're sniffing glue there, SEC dog. What's up, Tony? How are you, man? I haven't seen you in a bit. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Rob Sanders. Thanks for checking us out. I've got some bowl projections. Yes, bowl projections, ladies and gentlemen. These are interesting. Colby said, did I say if Georgia loses week 1, then they're eliminated from the playoffs? How can I explain that? It's very simple. Because I don't think you're going to the playoffs as a 2-loss team. Meaning, I don't think that I think you lose the Clemson game, you're going to lose the SEC championship game. You're not going in as a 2-loss team. Same thing for Clemson, but Clemson's schedule is not as good as Georgia's schedule. Clemson could win out, and I think if Clemson loses that game, they're going to be outside. So I think it's a knockout game. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think that that's the way that it'll be. And let's be completely honest. The Georgia schedule is not exactly a barn-burning type schedule, in my opinion, this year. Anyway, some of the bowl projections that these came from CBS Sports, and these are interesting. The Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. They've got Indiana and Boston College. That's kind of interesting. Jeff Havley up at Boston College, getting an opportunity up there. Can he maneuver Boston College to be a bowl team? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Brandon with a good point there. A 2-loss team has never gotten in to the college football playoff. I think that if Georgia loses to Clemson, I don't think they win the SEC. I don't. So there you go. Some other matchups. Let's see here. The Cheez-It Bowl, NC State and Oklahoma State. When you see that, you think, oh, wow, a couple of 7-5 teams. Kind of interesting there to look at it from that perspective. Let's see here. We did the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. I like the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl trophy, by the way. It's a big vat of Duke's mayonnaise. I wonder if you have to keep it refrigerated. Let's see here. The Cotton Bowl the Sugar Bowl, they've got Georgia and Iowa State. And here's what they wrote up. As the SEC's runner-up with a loss or two in 2021, Georgia gets the SEC Sugar Bowl slot while the league champion moves on into the playoffs. Who will the Bulldogs face in New Orleans? The spot is reserved for the best team for the Big 12. But in this scenario, the Cyclones are number 2. So they've got basically the second team from the Big 12 playing the second team from the SEC. And, of course, I didn't write these. These are from CBS Sports. So interesting stuff there. Let's see here. A couple other matchups. Oh, in the Peach Bowl. Listen to this. This is interesting, too. LSU playing at North Carolina, playing North Carolina. So they've got basically North Carolina, I think, projected to be probably the number 2 team in the ACC, and LSU basically the 3 team in the SEC. So that's interesting too. A really nifty looking matchup there. There was a couple other matchups that were interesting too. Penn State and Florida. Let's see how that one works out. There's one more. Oh, here we go. In the Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame as an at-large team against Coastal Carolina as an at-large team as the Group of 5 champion. I read this and I was like, all right, there's a couple of things going for the Chants in their bid to reach the New Year's Six next season. If Coastal Carolina rips off seven straight wins prior to the to start the season prior to the first playoff rankings, there's a good chance Jamie Chadwell's team will be respected, almost be default given 2020 success. Nearly every major contributor is back, including dark horse Heisman candidate Grayson McCall. After Cincinnati lost defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman to Notre Dame earlier this spring, the Bearcats would love to get back to this spot as an unbeaten from the AAC, but Coastal has the more favorable slate in getting through without a blemish. I tell you what, man, that game has watching Notre Dame play Coastal Carolina, it would be like a Rudy matchup. You've got Coastal Carolina coming in as the Group of 5 darling, squaring off with a Notre Dame team that Notre Dame is going to be expected to win that game by, 10 points or so. But if Grayson McCall can shred up that Notre Dame defense, which he shredded up everybody else he's had, but that could be one of the more fun bowl matchups if it happens in the Fiesta Bowl. Another projected matchup, Iowa versus Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's trying to get Ole Miss into the top 25, but their schedule is not very easy, to be completely honest with you. So there's that on that front. Now, the Orange Bowl, they've got the number 1 seed in the college football playoff being Clemson, taking on the number 4 seed Oklahoma. And they say if Dabo Swinney and the Tigers are able to return to the Final Four as the nation's number 1 seed, that means Clemson runs through the ACC gauntlet and beats Georgia in the opener in Charlotte. They don't think that's a stretch considering the defensive talent returning, and I think that's the key for Clemson this year. Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Colby. Whoever loses that game is out. You're going to the Peach Bowl. I believe that. So I think whoever does win it has an inside track to the playoffs. And then the other matchup, they have, let's see here. Make sure I give you the number 2 Alabama playing number 3 Ohio State. So basically it's the same 4 teams from last year. They have 3 of the 4 teams from last year. And they have Alabama as the 2 seed. Now, I don't think that's going to be completely correct. I think if Alabama runs the gauntlet in the SEC, they're going to be the 1 seed. Clemson will be the 2 seed. The 3 seed will probably be Ohio State. And the 4th would probably go to Oklahoma, or you could make an argument for you could make an argument that could be Notre Dame if they run through their schedule, or maybe Wisconsin from the Big 10. Maybe they have a chance, or Iowa State from the Big 12. So there you go. That's the bowl projections that I've got. I'm not buying Clemson as the 1 seed. I think that there's going to be the set of folks that are going to give the SEC rub there to Alabama, and they'll have Clemson at 2 regardless of what happens. unless Clemson goes out and just blows everybody completely out of the water. I just don't see that happening. We'll take your calls at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Tony says Coastal's got to get by Liberty. I tell you what, that's an interesting matchup too. You know, the Power 5 matchups are the group of 5 matchups you're going to have this season. That's one of the absolute best. One of the absolute best. SEC Dog says same defense that gave up a half 100 to Ohio State. He says if you're a Clemson fan, you'd hope for some replacements. Okay. Fair enough on that. We shall see on that front. All right, we'll take your calls at 803-978-1832. I've got one other note here. I've got some projections for first-year coaches that they're who'll be the most successful heading into this season. This is where did I find this? I think I found this at si.com. This was interesting too. Number 1 is Gus Malzahn at UCF. They have him projected to be the top new coach at a new spot. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think that's that far off, to be honest with you. A couple of other names: Sarkisian at Texas is number 3. Andy Avalos at Boise State is number 2. Number 4, Blake Anderson at Utah State. Brian Harsin at Auburn. They picked them as number 5 as far as new coach at a new spot, and they like Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, even though they went 0-9 last year. That's kind of interesting. Can he rally Vanderbilt to just win what the FPI says they're going to win at 4 games? We shall see. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Podcast will be up this show at 5 o'clock. You can check it out there. However you get your favorite podcast, you can find it right there. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll have more for you right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I don't swear by the FPI. I just think it's interesting. I'm just saying, tell me the first team to have 2 losses to go to the playoff. I'll wait, Colby. I'll wait. They don't put 2 lost teams in the playoffs, man. Sorry. It's just the way that it is. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. FCS playoffs get underway this weekend, by the way. You've got, what is it? I think I got to look at the bracket. But yeah, it's going to be the FCS stuff getting on this weekend. By the way, Bobby Petrino is still coaching. He's at Missouri State. Yeah, his team's in the playoffs. I'm not making that up. Bobby Petrino's team is in the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Some folks online saying what I said about the Clemson Georgia game. I think whoever loses may end up in the Peach Bowl. Just saying. 2 lost teams don't make the college football playoff. I don't understand that. It's never happened. It's never happened. So Colby's up. I think Colby doesn't understand what I'm saying. I think that Georgia or Clemson will lose another game. So if you drop that first game, I definitely think Georgia's not going to win the SEC. I think that's going to go to Alabama, and 2 lost teams don't make the playoff. It's just the way that it is. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. Right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, I think the playoff committee is going to be expanded eventually, but in the 4-team set, no 2 lost teams ever made it. So there's that. They're talking online about that. Let's see here. SEC Dog says 2 lost team could get in like LSU did years ago in the BCS, which, let's just be honest, the BCS was, it ended up benefiting a lot of teams from the Big 12 and the SEC, to be honest with you. I think the playoff's going to get expanded to 8 teams eventually, and then you may have some 2-loss teams that will make it. But I don't think a 2-loss team is going to make it unless there is a big drove of teams that you have big upsets across the board. By the way, if Clemson loses the game to Georgia, one of the things that Dabo Swinney is going to have to fight is that the complacency thing, because I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way that I do. You could win out on the ACC front and still not make the playoffs. I believe that. I mean, there really isn't an ACC team that's out there other than Clemson that people are on fire about. I mean, you could talk about North Carolina, but North Carolina loses a lot. Chaz Surratt. Yeah, that's a big deal for North Carolina. So I truly believe whoever loses that game is out of the playoff hunt, and I'll be shocked if they're not. And by the way, I'll still be here if I'm wrong. You can yell at me on Twitter come November when they put the college football playoff rankings out there and say, "Hey, Georgia lost to Clemson, and they still went to the CFP." I'll take my medicine and my crow. I like it deep fried with hot sauce on the side. It tastes like a corn dog that way. Anyway, one of the other things I wanted to get out there today, we got a big matchup coming up this weekend in college baseball with South Carolina playing Arkansas, 2 of the top 10 teams in the country, something like that. We're getting to the point now where if you look at some of the games, some teams have bigger home field advantages than others. And what I mean by that is that Vanderbilt, the quote-unquote Vandy boys, they had to play at Knoxville this weekend, and Coach Corbin said this environment here, I don't know what we're doing in Nashville, but there aren't many empty seats at UT right now. Let me just tell you, COVID does not exist in Knoxville. There are a lot of people having a good time, and sometimes at our expense. We just needed to do our part to play baseball. They created a very good environment here for baseball, and I credit them for that. Adam Sparks from the Tennessean says that Metro guidelines allow for 40% capacity at outdoor arenas. Vanderbilt will have to follow 6-foot guidelines, but they've only been playing in front of crowds of like 600 compared to the bigger crowds that they've been being exposed to in other spots. Vanderbilt's athletic director, Candace Story Lee, made an announcement on Twitter saying, like Coach Corbin, I'm eager to get back to normal and fill our stands at Hawkins Field. We also understand that the dynamics in each metropolitan area are unique and the pandemic is ongoing. So basically, what you have here is that you're getting a really raucous baseball environment in some spots and then not so much in others, because certain cities have it set up where you can't have as many people there. This is something that's going to go on through the spring. And I wonder, when we get to the college baseball playoffs and the regionals, etc., I wonder what's going to happen with that. Is the NCAA going to look at things and say, you know what? Are we going to give let's say you have a couple of teams, like let's use Ole Miss and Mississippi State, where the states are more wide open in Mississippi. Do we lean towards them to get a regional so we can get more fans in the stands over, let's say, a team that may be right there with them as far as records go, but, you know, they can only have, we'll use Vanderbilt as 600 people in the stands. I think the top tier teams, Vandy, the teams that are up there, Arkansas, all of your teams that are in the top 5 or whatever, I think they'll get their regionals. But after that, I think it's going to drop down a little bit. And I think it's going to be looked upon as who can get the most people in the stadium. And that sucks. That sucks for the young men that are out there playing, hoping to be able to play a home regional game. And you're not going to happen. It's not going to happen, I think. Joe Healy from Baseball America joins us this Thursday and Friday. He'll be in studio with us, and we're going to talk about that, because that's kind of a big deal. And the stuff that Coach Corbin said, I don't think that COVID exists in Knoxville. Wow. What a bold statement there. What a bold statement. Bigger cities are not allowing as many people in there. They really aren't. And it does take away from the atmosphere. I know that some people are like, you should be able to play the same everywhere, and I get that. But when you walk out and there's 3,700 people compared to 600 people, it's a huge difference. It's an absolutely huge difference. And I think it does take away from the game. Now, I'm on the other front. There are going to be people that say, you know what, we'll get through this season and worry about the rest of it for next season. But I think it's coming down to July. What I mean by that is we'll have all of the spring sports will be done with the College World Series and all that out of the way. And then it's going to be open the doors and let it go. I truly believe that with the number of vaccinations that people are getting. I mean, there's spots in Columbia now where you can drive up to certain spots and no appointment and get your vaccine. It's crazy. Michael says the future of the SEC East is Garnet. It might take a couple of years, but when it's happened, it's going to happen a lot. Some people like Coach Beamer, man. I like Coach Kimry down there. I think he's great. Wide receiver coach is great too. Trevor says Georgia wins the national title this year. We'll see. We shall see. If JT Daniels plays like he did in the spring game, Georgia's going to be tough. The Georgia defensive line looked good too. All right, don't forget, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Be sure to check him out. You can follow him on Twitter at Clemson Sports. He's also at ClemsonSportsTalk.com. South Carolina fans love him. Georgia fans love him, even though Georgia's going to play Clemson this year. They love Lawton Swan show. Be sure to check him out as you're riding home this afternoon right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. And he has podcasts for his show up every day. I have podcasts up at 5 o'clock. I will be back at it tomorrow right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. We're here every day at 3 o'clock. You guys are welcome to join us every day. I have good stuff every day from 3 to 4, a little kind of midday action. Alan V. Rob believes in the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny too. Yeah, who doesn't believe in the Easter Bunny? I like chocolate rabbits. What's wrong with you? Zach, you got to get here early, brother. 3:00. Appreciate you guys, man. Thanks so much. We'll see you later on.